Welcome to the installation video for Fortress Versai residential fencing. First, you will need some tools and safety equipment. We recommend a reciprocating saw with a 10 teeth per inch bimetal blade for a clean cut of the fencing posts and panels. Review the installation guide for a full list of tools and safety equipment. Before beginning the installation, be sure to consult your local utility provider and mark any utilities in the area where Fortress fencing will be installed. The first step in installing Versai fencing is to determine the layout of the fencing and locations of the posts. Use marking paint to help measure out the location of each post. We recommend a standard on-center spacing of 92 3/8 inches for most installations. Next, dig each hole to a depth of 24 inches and a width of 6 inches. We recommend 3 inches of gravel in the bottom of each post hole. After the post holes are prepared, run a string line to ensure the proper positioning of each post. Next, you will set your post in concrete. After all the posts have been set in concrete, you are ready to begin installing the Versai panels. Versai offers several options when choosing a bracket, each offering a slotted connection point to provide additional adjustment when installing Versai panels. The EX104 or end bracket is our most popular style. The EXW204 or line bracket is the simplest and fastest bracket to install. The EXW304 or corner bracket is designed for 90-degree turns. And the EXS104 or swivel bracket is designed for Versai panels that need to be installed with a curvature in the perimeter. Let's begin by installing the EX104 brackets. We recommend that each Versai panel be installed 2 inches above grade. To ensure that this threshold is met, cut spare lumber into 2-inch heights and place underneath each end of the panel. Place the panel on your blocks and line up the bracket in the center of the post, even with the panel rail end. Mark the center hole on the post. Use a spring punch on your center hole mark to help ensure the screw has a starting point in the face of the post. Next, install the bracket by driving the provided self-tapping screw through the bracket into the post with a 1/2-inch socket. Continue this process on the top 2 panel rails until all 3 brackets have been installed on the post. Next, slide the panel into the brackets on the post. Install the provided carriage bolt through the fastener and the panel railing. Hand tighten the nut to the bolt. You've just completed installing the EX104 brackets. Next, we will install the EXW204 or line bracket. First, line up the bracket in the center of the post, even with the panel rail end. Insert the carriage bolts into the hole through both sides of the bracket and hand tighten the nut to the bolt. Repeat these steps until all 3 brackets are installed. Now you are ready to bring in the second panel. Insert the carriage bolts through the brackets and hand tighten the nuts on all 3 panel rail ends. Use a level to adjust your panel before fully tightening the nuts with a 3/8 inch socket. To finish off the line bracket installation, drive the provided self-tapping screw through the center hole into the post. Next, we will move on to the corner post and install the EXW304 corner bracket. Begin by gently sliding the brackets down the post. You'll have a total of 6 brackets, as each panel rail end will receive 2 brackets. Install the first bracket in each set upside down. When sliding the last bracket into place, install the carriage bolt through the hole of the bracket and tighten the nut on the bolt. Pull up the secondary bracket and continue this process as you install the remaining brackets. Next, position the second panel so the holes align with the brackets. Use the secondary upside-down brackets and install the panel to the post. Next, we will install the EXS104 swivel bracket, which allows for angled applications. Begin by disassembling the bracket so you can mark your holes for installation. Center the bracket on the post and mark the 2 holes for the self-tapping screws. Spring punch and drive the screws through the holes. Then, reassemble the swivel piece onto the bracket by finger tightening the bolt connecting the bracket together. Next, align the panel with the bracket. Insert the provided carriage bolt and hand tighten the nut to the bolt. Swivel the panel to the desired angle and tighten the screw underneath the bracket and the nut on the back side of the post rail to keep the panel in position. Continue this process for the remaining brackets to provide a simple and quick angled fencing installation. During any installation, you will likely need to trim a panel to fit a shorter length between the posts. Begin by measuring the length that you will need to trim off the panel. At times, you may need to only trim slightly for a proper fit, and the use of a bracket will help guide your cut line. Use a speed square to mark your cut lines. Cut the panel rails using a reciprocating saw with a 10 teeth per inch bimetal blade. Next, file the edges of the cut to remove any excess material. Use touch-up paint to protect the cut metal from rust and corrosion. Next, you will need to drill new holes into the panel rail ends. Begin by lining up the bracket in the center of the post, even with the panel rail end. Mark the location of the hole on the panel rail end. Use a spring punch, and then drill a hole using a 5/16 inch drill bit. Repeat these steps for the remaining panel rail ends and continue installing the brackets. Let's look at how Versai fencing can easily accommodate aggressive landscapes by raking the panel. Versai fencing features a patented pin hinge that allows the panel to rake or adjust up to 48 inches in height from the bottom of the picket to the ground. When installing a panel on a rake, it's important to extend the bracket out as far as possible to allow clearance for the panel to move. On the other end, ensure your panel rail ends are as close to the post as possible to help decrease the gap during raking. From there, you will install the brackets to the post and connect the panel rail ends to the brackets, following the same process as before. Fortress Versai fencing is simple to install and versatile for any application. Next, we will review best practices for post trimming and press dome cap installation. When trimming the top of a post, we recommend leaving 2 inches for the press dome cap installation. Begin by measuring and marking your cut line with a speed square. Cut the post using a reciprocating saw with a 10 teeth per inch bimetal blade. File off the excess material for a smooth finish. You can use touch-up paint if desired. To cover the trim post and all other posts, simply install the press dome cap with a rubber mallet. Next, we will install the Versai rings onto the fencing panel. Begin by placing the Versai ring centered on the picket. Next, drive the provided self-tapping screw through the center of the Versai ring and into the picket with a 5/16 inch socket. It's that simple. Continue installing the Versai rings along the entire length of the Versai fencing. Congratulations on installing your Fortress Versai residential fencing.